talk for a long time, so I'll try to keep it kind of concise and to the point. I have, unfortunately, like I said, more experience with this kind of thing than I wish I did. And at some point, I became like the poster child for psychology and this kind of topic. And I'm involved with the NCRC. So currently, I'm a rescue instructor, a pretty new one. And if you would have asked me back in 2010, when I was a carefree recreational caver, if I was going to be a rescue instructor, I would have laughed and laughed. But things happen, and sometimes we get put on paths that we don't really expect. So I'll give you a little bit about my background and kind of go into some of this stuff. And it's a bit heavy, but we'll try to it's we'll try to keep it somewhat light. We'll see. So I've actually started caving in 1999. I was 15 years old. I was a tour guide at Blue Spring Caverns in southern Indiana. It was awesome. I get to run around a 20-mile cave after hours and just cave, and every minute I could have free to be underground. I loved it, just instantly. I think a lot of us here share that kind of just instant attraction to caving for whatever weird reason. And I managed to keep myself pretty happy doing that for a while. I went to school, took care of, life stuff. And about 2009, I started to really kind of get drawn back into caving more energetically. And I wanted to be in projects. I wanted to survey. I wanted to be involved with the community more. So I started getting involved with that. In 2013, there was a major incident that involved a fatality of a fellow caver on a trip that I was on. I'll tell you a little bit about that. And that was kind of the one that really rewired my brain and a lot of things, and kind of put me on this rescue U-turn that I ended up just really diving pretty deep into that and taking a lot of classes. And along the way, had another incident happen that involved a flood entrapment in 2016 that that one was a little bit more publicized, and I'll talk a little bit about the media on that. I learned a lot of lessons about the negative exposure of media that was unpleasant for that. And then I eventually became an instructor. So I'm super glad it all happened. It's one of those things that's like really strange. Like I said, I was never interested in rescue. In fact, we used to make fun of rescue nerds. And like, hey, like some of you, now I am one. But it just all kind of happened. So aside from caving, professionally, I'm a grant writer and I work in like water quality grants. So I write grants and I manage them. And I started doing that in 2013. So right before this big incident, I had started this new career that I really enjoyed. I went to school for biology, and that's kind of my side gig. I like I'm kind of more of a generalist, not a specialist. But and then in September of 2013, I got married. So I was just like on this path of, just all these great things happening. And then this pretty big event happened. So before I kind of go into that, I do want to just like put that disclaimer out there. I am not a professional. I do water samples under bridges, and like I like I'm not a professional. In fact, I am a like Midwestern farm kid who doesn't really like talking about feelings or things like that up until this point. And so, or acknowledging that anything's wrong or these kind of things. So that's that's kind of my background, where it's like, I'm fine, leave me alone, and I've always kind of been that way. So I am definitely not a professional. So please understand, like, none of this is just my sharing of my own perspectives and personal experiences. But I think it's helpful, one, to talk about these things and just put them out in the world. And also, two, there were some things I saw that happened during these incidents and after that really spun my head around and really surprised me. I was prepared for them the second time I had a rescue incident. But I just kind of like think it's worth acknowledging. So in case you do see them, you can kind of like at least not be as surprised. And of course, I'm a big proponent of the rescue training. I think used it as my personal coping mechanism, and it's brought me a lot of just really great benefits in many ways that I'll kind of talk about. But the other thing is, I'm not a professional, but if you feel like you need that, go see one. In fact, I kind of was musing as I was preparing this presentation. I was like, I think it took me like over a decade to unpack some of this baggage, and I'm still like unpacking it. So maybe if you actually go see a professional, it'll take you much faster than it took me. And it will like get you where you need to be faster, because I definitely kind of didn't really address some of those things very quickly. And so it's taken me a while to kind of get there, but I am going to talk about death and some things that are pretty heavy. So if that's not something y'all want to hear about, this is time to get out, and I won't hold it against you. None of us will. But the first incident that really rocked my world, and this is the one that's surprising, because people, when they know that I'm talking about psych stuff, they're like, oh yeah, the flood entrapment. And I'm like, listen, that was the second one. I was already prepared for a lot of that stuff mentally. This one I was, sorry, utterly unprepared for. So this incident involved a fatality of our friend, Tim McLean. And so for those of you who knew Tim or didn't know him, Tim was 49 years old, and he was one of the strongest members of our caving group. He was like the size of like a professional jockey. So we would always use him as the exploratory person. And he just had this warmness and this just boundless good attitude. Like he's like one of those rare people, I think, that if you knew him for 2 minutes, you felt like really welcome, and you felt like you had like a bond with him. He just kind of had this sort of really just really, really friendly presence. And so Tim and I met in 2009, and we became really close caving friends, and we were just, brought him into the Binkley project. I moved away overseas for a little bit, came back. He was still hitting it every weekend, going hard. We all were. I came back, and like it was just great caving with him. He's just a wonderful person. And so on the day that he passed, we were on a trip to a routine area of a section of Binkley Cave, and we were actually hauling some dive tanks, and we were just having fun and laughing, everything like that. And then we had kind of stopped to wait for some people to go through a low airspace, and I looked over, and he was face down in the water, like we were standing in like neck deep water. And it's so weird to be like, I think I was 27 or 28, and the seconds it takes you to realize it's not a joke and that it's like a real thing, I felt like I grew up in an instant, and now I'm like a full-grown adult, and I had never seen anyone pass away before. I've never worked in the hospital or anything. I've been on the farm, but I've never seen a friend go. And so when people sometimes pass, they don't do it. They don't just shut their eyes and they're gone. It's sometimes hard to understand what's happening. Or is he having a seizure? Did he inhale water? Did he drown in like a minute? I didn't know what was going on, So we pulled him over to a gravel bar and sorry, started doing CPR, and it was just chaos. Everybody dropping gear, went from being peaceful, laughing, just gliding through this peaceful water to just screaming pandemonium. And then we sent a couple people out for help, and then I think this happened around 4. And then around 4:30, like one of our trip leaders is like, I think we should all leave now. And I was like, what? We're not going to leave our best friend here on a gravel bank by himself after we've given him literally 30 minutes of time. I mean, we all knew, like, we weren't really kidding ourselves that we were going to bring him back, but it just felt so soon to just be like, all right, okay, we're done. Let's leave. So I argued with the person, and I said, no, I know how to get out, and I feel confident. We're well supplied back here. I want to stay, and I want to keep doing CPR until it feels like it's not right to do it anymore, and I don't want to leave. And that person said, okay, well, don't lose your shit. And I said, oh, okay, I won't. Like, I didn't know what I was. Okay, sure. And we stayed back there. Myself and two other people opted to stay, and we continued CPR for what ended up being a little over 3 hours. Mostly just because it's something to do to keep you warm, and also when you stop, you have to admit that you've stopped and it's done. And so none of us were doctors, and they always tell you whenever you start you shouldn't stop, but like we all knew it was just, we just kept on. And so then you get a long time to sit back there for several hours and wait for people to come, bring the recovery stuff. And then on the way out, you get to see all your friends coming into the cave, and they're just getting the news, but I've had to sit with it for hours. And so it's really an interesting thing to see different people's like stages of realization of the process. And then something started to build in me that was really unexpected, but I was just filled with such anger. And I remember like looking at some people that were in the cave and thinking, why are they here? Like, they have no business in here. Why are the police here? That's stupid. Why is there a phone in the cave? That's stupid. Like, everything was stupid. And I was so mad about everything, just like infuriated. And I'm not usually like that. And then, you get out of the cave and the police want to ask you questions about like suspicious activity, which felt very offensive, but they're checking the boxes. When somebody passes away in a remote area, they have to make sure there's nothing suspicious. And then at 2 a.m, a little 85-year-old pastor comes around with his Bible asking if you want to pray about it. And I'm not particularly religious, so that was also like something that I was feeling very like grumpy about. And it was just, everything just felt extremely just offensive to me. I don't know why. And it's interesting because I knew a lot of the people on the surface, but to see so many people, I'd never seen a rescue operation. And trying to understand the kind of decisions that were being made, like, why do we need these people? Why is there a phone in the cave? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why aren't they just letting people go in and just take care of it? It was very frustrating to me. And excuse me. One of the things that I ruminated on is that if I am feeling really frustrated with something or really, really disgruntled about it, I think the burden of responsibility is on me to understand it better before I can throw it in the trash. And so, so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to understand better why these kind of decisions were being made and what sort of logic is behind them. And now that I've had training, I do understand them and they totally make sense to me. And I feel much more forgiving and understanding of those kind of things. And then while I was still disgruntled and I hadn't quite made my mind up to do rescue training, we had a debriefing, which also felt very invasive, where they go to your grotto meeting and they say, here's what happened. In a very clinical way, they talk about how one of your best friends died. And then Anmar Mirza was doing the debriefing, and and then he gets to the part where he said, well, we had one person who had passed away, a confirmed fatality, and then we had 3 patients still in the cave. And I was like, what? Oh, they're referring to me, that I stayed in the cave and created a complication, and I was like on some chart as a patient. Great, cool. And that like pissed me off too, because I didn't understand like that, but also they hadn't had any news from us in like 7 or 8 hours. So it doesn't mean that they thought we were babies. It just means that they needed new information about us. We were unknowns at that point. And so all of that stuff, I think it's what they refer to in the corporate world as a beach ball problem, where everybody at each department can only see their own stripe of the beach ball. Finance can only care about finance and the budget and marketing and, all this. And cavers can only care about caving. And if we've never seen the rescue stripe of the beach ball, it's very difficult to understand it from that end. So my first task was to go to training, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah, good friend Tim, what ended up happening was a massive, huge like catastrophic heart attack that he had in the cave. There was no sign of it. He was in good spirits, and I've been told that the kind of heart attack he had, if he had had it on the hospital steps, would have still made no difference. So it was good knowing that, but it was still just like, at the time, just totally rocked my world and a lot of other people's. And it feels profoundly selfish to talk about how that affected me when like he died. But we'll file that under guilt, that we still have, a lot of us. But some of the things that were interesting that I observed and experienced, and this is super like rudimentary psych stuff, and I know some of you all who study it are like, this is baby stuff, but I didn't know about some of it. And a lot of it I read about later. But these are things that I observed underground, and these are things that I observed again in the 2016 incident. But one of the things that surprised me most, and I'm not saying this with any sort of like judgment or blame, there are unexpected shifts in team dynamics. And if you look at the little chart, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and you think you know how you're going to react under stress, you kind of don't. I think I'm definitely, I in that situation was in the fight. Um, I was hunkered down. I was ready to, like, stay with it till the very end. But you don't know, and stress does weird chemicals in your brain and makes you do weird things and makes other people do weird things. And it's why it's important, if anything you take away from this, to be incredibly forgiving of yourself and others, because it's just weird stuff happens. And I've heard stories from other people where like people will respond to rescues and like sabotage their own equipment so that they don't have to go in on a body recovery and stuff, even people that have had a lot of training. So you may accidentally end up the leader of a situation. Your leader could be the one who's had the accident or the issue, or somebody that you normally rely upon to be really really solid. They can't, does not compute. They're not with it. They're not able to do it. Abdication of responsibility is another one that I saw several people do, either responsibility to their team or themselves. At some point, people become so overwhelmed with stress that they stop taking care of themselves. They stop doing things to contribute to the success of the team. They just shut down. And we've seen that happen a few times, and from some surprising people, like I said, no judgment, where they just punch the time clock and they're out. The good and bad idea fairy, we talk about a lot in the rescue training, but especially if you're in a prolonged situation where you're just sitting in stress. And this is the whole interesting thing about cave rescue. My friend works at a grocery store, and his coworker had a heart attack, and he had a similar incident. And we were talking about it, and in 15 minutes, the whole incident was over for my friend. He did CPR, the ambulance came and zoomed his coworker off to the hospital. And in 15 minutes, all decision-making responsibility was off of his shoulders. All stress of the incident was in somebody else's lap. And I was like, that's so strange to have basically this same incident that I had, but mine lasted like days, and yours was over in like 15 minutes. It took us then to get out of the cave and go home and shower, all this stuff. It's just when emergencies on the surface are very different than the ones in wilderness areas, because you have to sit with that stress for a long time, and it makes you do weird things. And one of the things it really makes you do is have the good idea, bad idea fairy, where you just think, we should just do this. What if we just did this? And in the case with my friend, dying, there wasn't much choice. There weren't that many choices on the flow chart. But for like a flood entrapment or like a small party rescue where you're on the decision making, like, do we call for help? Do we try to do it on our own? What do we do? Definitely don't rush your decision making sometimes, because it can really you can get some bad ideas, some bad nuggets floating in there, just because people want to do something, because not doing something feels wrong. So doing something doing something feels right, and that's not always the case. Guilt, blame, doubt. We're all familiar with those. The doubt is an interesting one. You doubt your own ability, and you'll doubt stupid small things. Like when we were in the flood entrapment, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Like we started to second guess very easy passages in the cave, like that we should know better. You know, it was just like, now that you've had something this bad happen to you, you feel like every decision you make is like you're just even doubting very simple things that you should know, because even, you know, the solid weather report that you followed on the way into the cave is wrong. So like, everything in the world is you can't trust anything, even yourself, you know. That extreme violation of privacy, you know, people are going to ask questions, and debriefing is good. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but especially with the media and stuff, that's if you feel like you heard about a rescue and it happened late and you felt like, how come I didn't know? Like, I think we're starting to really do a much better job about being super protective and mindful about sharing too much too early, because the media is incredibly invasive, and I've had some negative experiences with that were not great. In answer to my question, why is this person here? Who would call them? You sometimes have what's called emergent volunteers, people that just want to help. They just show up, even when the rescue management doesn't call them, and they just want to help real bad. And sometimes they're cooperative, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes they'll just, you know, go in the cave and do whatever they want. And so that is also something to be mindful about, that the management is doing their best to try to incorporate those people and give them jobs and roles to the best of their ability. Some of them are extremely emotionally attached to the situation because it's a friend of theirs, and you know, they'll just show up. So in the case of my friend Tim, some people found out that he died on Facebook because people were sharing stuff a lot, and we had some emergent volunteers because of that, because they were just you know, they had to be there. And like, I get it, like, so it's not wrong. It's just another aspect of what the rescue management may have to fold into their operations and work it out. This fawn one is kind of hard to totally situationally fit with all of these, but codependence is kind of an interesting thing, and where somebody, it kind of goes along with the abdication of responsibility. Some people will just totally like shut down, or some people will just attach themselves to another decision maker and they will jump off a cliff with them. So you know, that kind of thing too, where they get really just like, you know, and I've found myself doing that as well, where it's just, you know, you just really want to, you just it feels great to let somebody else make your decisions for you, and you know, that relieves a lot of stress. So sometimes you'll have some codependent stuff, noise sensitivity, that kind of thing, subjective memories. A lot of people, I've noticed, when you start to compare notes on something, their versions are really different. And I used to think, well, like, why would they lie about that? But they're not lying. That's just their version of the truth, that they've created their own narrative, and I have mine, and you're hearing it. And so, you know, that's it's not necessarily anything nefarious. It's just, you know, it's just the version that they created. And there's a lot of subjectivity in memories that's really interesting afterwards. But yeah, just some things. The unexpected team dynamic stuff was really something new to me. But I do want to say, so like after all this, rescue training became a happy place. And I'll kind of punch it up. I don't want to be like total rescue cheerleader, but I did use it as a coping mechanism. I didn't know I was doing that until looking back, and how supportive my teammates were of me in level 1, because I was really like, I couldn't believe we were hanging people off of the cliff in the first day of like week long. It was really stressing me out, and they were kind of just kind of helping me float along through that and build confidence. But the thing about rescue training, whatever's in the curriculum, whatever, all of that aside, whether it's everybody's in agreement with what's being taught or whatever, it's a wonderful network of people who have also gone through shit, I found. And so without being like weirdly nosy, like, it's nice to be in a place with people who have dealt with some stuff like that, and they're not trying to get in your business. They just know, they understand. And so that really helped me out a lot. And also just building skills in like rigging and caving, like that helped me kind of also get back in the saddle and have more confidence to get back into caving in a way that like I felt like I could handle and I felt like I could contribute. So yay, rescue training. So my second incident, after I'd had a little bit of training, I'd been through level 2 NCRC. So I had a fair, I felt like I knew the drill. I'd seen some management stuff. Some friends and I think it was 7 of us went, oh yeah, there it is, spelunkers. Yeah. This headline was originally like, instead of 7 cavers rescued from Indiana Cave, it was 7 gators, Gators, which I wish somebody would have screen capped it, but I guess they had heard something over the radio. So they thought there were 7 alligators in the cave for a while before they edited this headline. Anyways, the media is crazy. We went into the cave. This is Binkley Cave, which is in southern Indiana. It's now 46 miles long. It was like 20 miles long when I started helping with the project back in like 2010. So we managed to add over 20 miles in like 5 years, which is amazing. But now we have to like dig for it and go really far. It's like hard now. It's not giving it up like it did. But this is a big cave. And so it's got a big base level river and, kind of multi-levels. It's mostly horizontal, muddy, like slimy cave stuff. But we looked at the forecast. Everybody was in agreement. I think there was like 1/10 of an inch of rain. And what we were worried about was like after midnight, there was going to be like frozen precipitation. So we wanted to get in and get out before. And it was like one of those weird 60-degree December days. Anyways, we're with a group. Most of us are all of us are experienced cavers. A couple newer folks. One person was home from vacation. And we're taking them through this area to the frontier, maybe like 3 hours back in the cave. And we were in this like low gravel crawl called the DMB crawl. It stands for the Dick and Balls crawl. Anyways, don't ask. And I was one of the largest people. So I was kind of in the back, like kind of digging gravel through. And we had gotten strung out. There's this little 20-foot bathtub that's not too bad. And I'm in the bathtub, and actually I was kind of like mentoring or helping somebody who was kind of they were like, oh, I'm kind of nervous about water. And you're like, okay, well, here's the bathtub. Here's the big challenge of the day. So let me just go slow and I'll show you, look, it's not that bad, and my like face was on the rock. It wasn't too bad. And I'm in this bathtub and I can hear somebody saying, I think this water looks like it's rising. And you're like, what? No. I mean, that's like another campfire story. I've had some other like cave water incidences that were kind of spooky. So, you try to like master your mind in those kind of situations. And the person I was with decided they didn't want to do the bathtub. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just go out with this person, the 2 of us. And I started to look at the gravel bar and I could see the water backing up on the gravel and I knew it was coming up. So I was like, oh, wow. And I could hear it is starting to pick up. And so we had to play telephone because some people were really far up ahead. Hey, come back. The water's rising. So a few people had to hold their breath and come through this like 20-foot bathtub that was now shut. It had closed. And it was really nervy to have water rise on you when you're in a crawlway. But we got out of it and we thought that was like the excitement for the day. And it became obvious to us as we kind of backtracked to the main river that the cave was pressurized and like a lot of water we could hear in the walls and in adjacent passages was just blasting. And we were kind of in a middle level. So we thought maybe it had just kind of gone through. What we didn't know was that 4 freaking inches of unexpected rain had just come down on like frozen ground or like saturated ground. I can't quite remember, but 4 inches, which is just like crazy. I mean, I've been caving for a while and we've never had the weather report be that weirdly like off. And, we're not, you get so many people like going back to that slide. It's like doubt, blame, guilt. You get all these people like on the internet that are like, you're stupid. Why would you do that? Why would you go caving when it rains? And it's like, well, if I'm being honest, I live in Indiana, and if we waited till there was 0% chance of rain, we would never go caving. So we try to definitely be mindful about that and not take, really, really dumb risks. But that one was really crazy. And since then, I'll be honest, that's definitely given me a lot of doubt about weather reporting and all that. But we ended up staying in an upper level because when we got down to the main river, the water was like, it had risen probably 6 feet. It was scary. So we knew that an area downstream was sumped. And there was kind of two exit, and this is where we got the idea ferry thing coming along, because there were two ways out. We had come in through a crawlier, shorter way that was undoubtedly sumped, but there was a long way out of the cave, but it was borehole with a bigger river, which meant more water, which meant more current. And so we went back and forth a lot in our group. There was a lot of ideas about which would be a good idea, or if any would be a good idea. And I was very much a fan of just sitting and waiting, and that's extremely hard to do. But I was also, in hindsight, I think I was the only one at the time who had rescue training, and there's so much confidence that it gives you to know, like, to kind of be able to work your way through the problem and say, knowing what triggers what response. And we have a call out, this person will call this person, then there's 8 people in the world who know how to get confidently to where we are, like 3 or 4 of them underground, 2 of them can't get there, so that leaves these 2 people, and if they can, or 3, it's like you're doing all these like logistics in your head, but you don't have new information. And so I was extremely confident that they were taking care of business on the surface. And I think if you haven't had training or had that level of confidence or seen that stripe of the beach ball, you really feel like you need to solve the problem yourself. And so, there's a lot of ideas coming out of the factory. And it's really hard when you have to just sit and kind of wait another hour and just see what happens. But my main concern was, did we need to be rescued? Not necessarily, as far as like we were supplied. We probably weren't going to die of hunger or whatever. But how do we know when it's safe to exit? And if people haven't reached us by a certain time, maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's more really crazy weather on the horizon. Like if 4 inches came down, like, I don't know, maybe the apocalypse is happening up there. I don't know what's happening. Like, so it's just like, I felt like if we could wait, and we had at least one person in particular that was not doing real well with hypothermia and morale. And at one point we went on an exploratory look downstream. And the thing is, even though, like, when you think about these water situations, people are always so fearful that you'll run out of airspace. But what's actually really scary is just the swift water problems. And so we could hear boulders like moving around and crunching in the stream. And the short people in the back, you lose voice contact very quickly in high water with other people in your group. And the tall people had forged ahead, and some of the short people were just grabbing onto things and like being washed. And we got downstream to a point where one of our party members was actually washed out of sight, away around a corner. And it was terrifying. And then they came back, and we were like, all right, let's go back to our safe place. And that pissed a lot of people off because they didn't want to go back, they wanted to go out. And that's just wasn't a good answer. And like when we exited, that area was actually sumped, so I mean, that was really scary. And we lost a lot of energy. We almost lost a human. We lost a lot of body heat doing that. And so that kind of busted our morale pretty good. So we ended up just staying back. And somebody lost the sole of their boot. Like, it was really, it was just kind of, just wasn't great. But just trying to basically keep morale high and be encouraging and hope that folks will come. And they did eventually. And that was just what we needed, was just to know that that was a safe to exit, and to have some extra snacks and things. And just for some of the folks that were really feeling pretty low, that was a huge boost. But at one point I talked to another person on the trip who was, they said, do you think they're really out there? I said, if Good Morning America's not out there, we're really lucky, like flying around in a helicopter. And so I figured that when you have this many people stuck in a cave, it's going to catch attention. And it did. Oh, yeah. So So the media did get it pretty fairly at some point, actually, sadly, the gentleman I mentioned before, Tim McLean's mother, that a lot of us were friends with on Facebook, started sharing it for likes and prayers. She was very concerned about us cavers, and she kind of, I think, started a prayer chain for us, and that was one aspect of it. A lot of my family heard about it, who wasn't aware. Um, the media took pictures off of my Facebook profile to use them in articles. They called my places of work to ask for interviews. Um, like news vans like drove into people's private driveways at 7 a.m. and beat on the door to ask for interviews. Like it was actually in this case really good example of why we're glad to have a friendly relationship with our local conservation officers, because they were able to actually prohibit access to this site, and they would do the interviews for us. And you have people that are laying over, they need hotel rooms, they need food, um, the landowner need a new gravel for his driveway, like whatever. At the end of that, you need a porta john, these kind of things. The law enforcement can cash float that pretty easily in a way that cavers can't. So we're lucky to work with those folks. And I get kind of irritated when I hear people be like, oh, why do we need them? Cavers rescue cavers. And it's true, we do. But also, I think it's important to recognize that a lot of other people play roles on the surface without even setting foot in the cave that are extremely important. Like, you need a track hoe, here's a track hoe. You want a tarp the size that cover up a school gym, here's one. They'll get it for you. And like, they've trained with us, they know when they're kind of like what's beyond their capabilities, and like we work really well together. So just important to remember that, I think. But yeah, for me, this was not as grim as the first time, because I had already been through something where somebody died. And so I was feeling very optimistic, because everybody was still like alive and in good health. And I'm sure that was extremely annoying to everybody I was trapped in a cave with. Because I was like, this isn't that bad. Like, um, but it was not good. But I was very upbeat about some things at times. I mean, it's definitely, it's not upbeat, but it's not. It could have been, to me, magnitudes worse. And I just had a good feeling that the people on the surface were working the problem, and they wouldn't leave us hanging. So I was very thankful for them. Some people say, well, that wasn't a rescue because you all walked out. And I'm like, it's a rescue if all of my friends had to respond at like 2 a.m. and drive down and, pay for gas and food and out of their own pocket, and worry about us being like basically like Schrodinger's cavers for 40 hours, whether we were like alive or dead. Like, they didn't know. So that's a lot of stress that they had to go through. And actually, I think for a lot of them, the effects it had on those folks were worse than me, or like some of us that were in the cave. So to go back, all of that same experience, you see different all these problems, but like some of them more prevalent in different situations. The auditory hallucinations were weird. I was definitely hearing people like screaming that weren't, like yelling for help. It was weird. You start to like, your brain wants to hear things. It's very strange. But yeah, the violation of privacy in this one was the worst. And even when they went to do the debriefing, some people didn't want a cave community debriefing. They said, this is not their story to share. And I said, well, I understand that, but I also, like, when the cave community responds, it becomes all of our story, kind of, or they have a right to know some things, when there is a response. And so, and even if they don't respond, I think it's really great if we do share and we feel comfortable sharing. The American Caving Acts, the American Caving Accidents reports really just, help us all out, and benefit us all. When we share, we're richer for it, I think, as a community. But some of the persistent effects, I know there's been all kinds of research on long-term, short-term. I've hesitated to use the word PTSD. I've not actually been diagnosed, but I can definitely check a lot of the boxes for sure. And I haven't been diagnosed because I haven't been to a doctor about it. Anyways, that's my own problem. Yeah, so I'll deal with it. I know, but yeah, some of these, yes, yes, thank you. So, some of these things are definitely things that I've personally experienced or watched some of those close to me experience. And the thing that I didn't know was a thing until I knew it was a thing was this first one, hypervigilance. So I thought I was just being super awesomely prepared for everything. But actually, like it, and you can see it that way. It's not a bad thing, but it's also, you know, you can do it to the point that it's sort of crazy and detrimental. And so, like, packing everything, what do they say? You pack what you fear. And like when you fear everything, you pack everything, and their pack's really heavy, and all this stuff. So I've scaled back on that sort of thing in recent years, and I've kind of you know not been quite so hyper vigilant, but I'm definitely just always on a hair trigger, aware of things. And the problem is you don't ever want to be surprised like that again. When you go from having like a good day to somebody dying in like 10 seconds, you never want to be surprised with anything nasty ever again. Like you want to know every bit of info. You want to know what you're getting into. You want to know everything so that you cannot be surprised like that. Seeking control as a self-protection mechanism. So this became something I really had to grapple with in some of my personal relationships and like at work. And I've always been a little bit like type a real go-getter. Anyways, but it started to become a thing that I recognized I was trying to not ever be surprised in a negative way. And I actually had a really kind of like an epiphany moment at an NCRC training. Anybody knows Don Paquette? He's kind of an old warhorse. But Don said something to me that was profound and surprising. And I've shared it with others. If you've heard this, I apologize. But I was having a bad day at training because I had all these really good ideas. And nobody was listening to my good ideas. I had like all these great, and they were just kind of being like, okay, cool story, bro, go over here. And I was getting very frustrated because I could tell nobody was paying attention to my really good ideas. And Don pulled me aside and said, what's going on? Tell me, and I told him. And he said, oh, okay, well, hey, you're really smart. I said, oh, okay, thanks. He goes, you're thinking 10, 20 steps ahead. I said, thank you. He goes, it's not a compliment. And I was like, oh, he's like, you're driving yourself and everyone around you nuts. Just plan the first 3 things that are most likely to happen, and just know that you and everybody else here are smart adults with the tools to figure out all the other weird things that'll happen. Like, and he was right. And I was doing that in work. I was doing that like in my relationships, and just like, I was trying to strategize and pre-plan everything, and it was driving me nuts. And so I'm very thankful for that kind of overthinking. I guess I could have added to that bullet point, overthinking, but like, it is like, you want to never be surprised. You want to never be surprised, so nothing bad can ever happen to you again. And that's just not possible. We can't control all of that random stuff. And so we have to make peace with that and just plan for the most likely things. But that was a doozy. This is another one, staying busy all the freaking time so you can never feel anything. So I like being busy, and I love all the things I do. So it's not to say that I don't, but at some point I kind of realized that I was I was like having a real problem with like seeing open days on my calendar would give me like, be like, what am I going to do that day? I must be busy. I need to schedule something. And that's when, it's kind of like, ruling your life, and you're not doing the things because you love it. You're kind of letting them like rule you. So I started being a little bit better about paring down and saying no, only saying yes to the things I'm really, it's either, what do they say? It's either a hell yes or it's a no. Like, if I'm not really into it, like, I'll let it pass. But the problem is I'm really into a lot of things. So I got to figure that out. But for those of you, just, make sure that you're the master of that, and that's not mastering you, because that's definitely something I've used in the past to kind of not have to address things and just kind of stay one step ahead, constantly looking for the next thing. So that can be a positive that can swallow you whole. Problems focusing, difficulty sleeping, intrusive thoughts. I have to sleep with a book. I have to have a Kindle or something in my hand. Even if I read 2 sentences and conk out, like I can't, otherwise I can't put my brain in a different space. Like doubt, lost confidence in yourself. That's a big one. Emotional dysregulation, not one I don't think I have too much issue with, but it's definitely a thing others deal with like overreacting to small slights, or, if it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 1 of making you mad, it's a 10, and just being like constantly just like feeling like things are, out to get you. Trauma dumping, perhaps. I've been guilty of that, as the kids say, oversharing and this kind of thing. Avoidance, substance abuse, self-sabotage, panic, anxiety attacks. I haven't had as much issue with some of those things, but it's definitely something to look out for in your friends and yourself and others, especially people who have been through this, if they start to really withdraw from everything and everybody. So how do you help yourself or help others after an incident? And it depends on your role. If you're the patient, or if you're a rescuer, if you're a teammate, if you're just somebody who heard about the bad thing that happened to a friend, no matter what, be patient with yourself and be patient with others. It's a journey. I mean, it's still like hard for me to talk about something like that happened like 10 years ago. Like, it's, some days I can talk about it fine, and some days it's really hard. And I think about it still, like, every day, like I do. Maybe like in the last year or so, I think about it like every other day, but it's like I still think about it. It's just like tree roots. You just have to like grow around whatever it is and just keep growing, but it doesn't go away. So just be patient with yourself and try these like confidence building trips and activities. Like I said, the rescue training for me helped to be able to challenge myself in ways that were, kind of where you're set up for success, or where you can get good feedback from other people, and get feedback in criticism, or I guess constructive criticism in a respectful environment, was really helpful for me. If you're called to respond to a rescue and you don't feel like you're up for it, be real. Like, don't feel bad if you need to say no. Somebody accused me of being a rescue junkie. Like, they're like, "You're taking all this rescue training." I'm like, I hope I never have to respond to a real rescue. I hope I just took all this training to like make friends and like learn rigging. Like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I signed up for, like ambulance stuff. But if you're an active caver in an area, or if you're one of the few people who know a route in a cave, or you have some other skill set, there is a high likelihood that you're going to be called, regardless of whether or not you're on the training list. So, being able to integrate with those teams, work well with others, and, to share those, to respond is something that may happen. And, if I get, like, I'll be honest, I mean, if I get called to respond to like a body recovery of a friend, I might pass. I don't know. I might want to stay on the surface. Like, yeah. I don't know. It will just depend on the day, right? So just be real with yourself, and don't make yourself a liability, or cause problems with, there's other people that can do that job. So no need to be a hero. Get involved, seek professional assistance. I think I saw Roger mention the check-ins, like 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months on those. Yeah, especially when you're watching out for affected friends, rescuers, family, landowners. I mean, there's people, these things have such a way of just, spreading out. Even the landowners, like the landowners talked about our friend Tim for like the next year. They were like, we lost some access because people were afraid that the cold water killed him. And, it wasn't that. And I guess, I don't know. It's just the way people start to speculate and think, I don't know, maybe we should have talked to them sooner, or maybe we did, and they're just gonna, say what they're gonna say. But the other thing was weird, especially after the flood thing. Sorry. We had some people that were like kind of really interested in the details. And right after the event, you're like, no, I'm done. Like, my brain is at capacity. I don't want to talk about this anymore. But then, like, maybe sometimes after a month or so, after you've like got back to normal, you might feel more ready to talk about it, but just be there. Debriefing is important, but don't overshare. Like, respect privacy. You know, don't blogging about it, putting it on out where the public can read it. You know, I think debriefing is great in our KF community, or kind of like on a need to know basis with like people who are involved, or to a certain degree the public needs to be informed, but that's a different sort of debriefing, you know. And so just being really mindful about the content that we share and where it goes and who gets it, and making sure that people don't find out that their friend is dead on Facebook. You know, that's that kind of stuff we need to really be important. Gallows humor is like in level 1 in NCRC, I remember sitting at lunch with the people who were talking about how doing CPR is stupid if you're out in the woods, and what kind of idiot would do CPR for longer than 15 minutes if you didn't have a cell phone nearby. And I'm just like, I have to go to the bathroom, and like, you know, I just wasn't desensitized to that. And I know a lot of people like work in medicine and stuff, and just hearing like that was just really hard to hear. So you know, being mindful about those kind of things, and especially around people, or like, even like I'd be on trips where people would be like, well, you know, like, don't kill yourself doing that, don't die, blah blah, you know, just even stuff like that. I was just like, ugh, I just la la la, I just don't want to hear stuff like that right now. So just being really respectful about that. Some people, that's just not that's not cool. And definitely encourage healthy coping opportunities for your friends. Like, you know, maybe they just would like to go on like a nice fresh air walk and not like to the bar or something, if it's something that they have some trouble like with their moderating their substances and stuff, you know, like everything in moderation, or, you know, not where it's ruling you. So if you know that's not going to be helpful for that person, you know, maybe help them find some ways to, you know, get some sunshine in their lives and not go down the dark path. And if you want to be a super well-adjusted, well-regulated person like me, here are some training opportunities. The orientation to cave rescue is just a weekend. There's no entry skill requirement. It's super easy. But what's really cool about orientation to cave rescue is it does give you an understanding of the stripe of the beach ball that involves management. And that was what I was missing, and why I was super critical of like seeing the phones in the cave. Like, when phones are in the cave, when they work, when they matter, they're awesome. But a lot of these things, like, if you don't understand what kind of why management's making decisions or asking certain things of people, even just the basic OCR really helps. Oh, cool. Thank you, Roger. That psych first aid, I didn't know about that one. Week-long training for NCRC, those usually fill up fast. They have some vertical skills requirements. SPAR, you have some vertical checkoffs. That's like a long weekend usually. We have these in the Midwest. These in-cave emergency exercises are vertical or horizontal, kind of as we offer them. Wilderness first aid and first responder, these will help you. I haven't gotten a chance to take the week-long one yet. I need to, but the weekend one was great, and that'll help you in all kinds of situations. Stop the Bleed, that's an online interactive course. That's a good one. CPR, Read Your American Caving Accident stuff. It's an NSS publication, but it's open to whoever, so you don't have to be a paid member to see that. And I think it's probably one of the most robust collections of wilderness accident statistics out there. It's one of, I mean, there's, you know, it's been going on for many years at least. It's a voluntary contribution. So I don't know what the estimate is, but I would say like we're lucky probably if 20% of accidents get reported, because I sure know there's a lot that don't. So, you know, report accidents so people can learn from them. That makes us all sharper. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. And I will look at the chat. I know Roger and a few people had some good, yeah, oh yeah. Some of you, I've been on rescues with some of you. Yeah, this article in the first aid, the psych first aid training. I'll have to check that out. I'm going to open that up right now. Cool. But if you all have questions, I don't know, it's kind of a big crowd. I don't know if you usually do questions. My email's here. If you want to DM me or send an email too, I'm happy to talk about this stuff around the campfire and like go into more depth. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like I don't have a lot of pictures because people don't really take pictures during situations like this. obviously. And I don't know, you know, it's a heavy topic, but like I said, through no it's just, you know, through bad luck, I've kind of had some experience with this, and oops, there it is. Yeah. Okay. I'll accept it. Yeah. Very nice. Expedition. Yes. I will file that one away for later. Cool. So, yeah, I guess I can stop sharing. I don't know, Stephanie, or do you field questions or?
Yeah, we do field questions. So
Okay,
if everybody's got anything they want to ask.
I know it's kind of free form, but yeah, if it's anything, like I said, some of these things were really, 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 really shocked me the first time I saw them, and I hope that maybe if you have to be the one that witnesses that, you can kind of be ahead of it. Training helps. Training helps a lot.
Do you ever run scenarios in your head, like before you go to bed, you're walking around?
Oh yeah,
all these different.
I've figured out how to get somebody out of every cave I frequently visit in any form or fashion or possible scenario. Now, would it work in real life? I don't know. I mean, yeah, like, yeah, that is something. I think in some ways it's a healthy pastime until it keeps you up all night. I'm a big fantasy fan, so like I like to disassociate and go into like some fantasy world, like and read about something, just total escapism. But yeah, I've definitely like we have a 1,000-foot bathtub in one of the caves, and I was like, I bet you could sandbag that, and with enough people, you could bail the water out of it, and then give the person a snorkel, but it would depend on their condition. And
I like you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely, yeah. I do that quite a bit. Any questions or anything? If y'all have been through stuff and you want to talk about it too, like my email's there. I'll give you my phone number on email. You can find me around the campfire. I'm happy to share or just listen. It's you know, if that's what it's just funny. Like my friend Tim, if I would have told him like back then, hey, I'm going to be a rescue instructor, like he would have just died laughing. But you know, here we are. So I'm happy. I'm very proud, and I'm super like humbled that all of you tuned in, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple comments if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I want to say this is amazing. This was excellent. You're brilliant, and this superseded my expectations, honestly. I actually have a master's degree with a specialty in trauma and stuff, and a lot of work in crisis response stuff. And yeah, work in the whole psychology field. And you really nailed so much stuff, and your little asides were so excellent as well. There are a couple books out there also on like survival psychology in the wilderness settings, especially, that are good. But I just really, one thing, you know, when you mentioned the sort of how your parts of your mind are going different places, that's one thing that they say, like in the crisis, sometimes being able to split your mind into, you know, to notice your parts of self can be helpful, actually.
Interesting. Or like, I think of it as, yeah, like that compartmentalization. I was like, this is, I don't have time for these emotions right now. Like, I literally remember telling myself that I will have emotions about this later.
Yes, exactly.
And
exactly.
You do. Yeah. That's interesting.
Is it possible for you to share your wonderful slides?
Yeah, of course. I was gonna say, if you send me an email, I'll send them over, or I'll put them in a PDF, and yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey Laura, I had a question.
Hey.
First of all, thanks for the presentation. There's a common saying I think we're all familiar with, that getting into cave rescue makes you a safer caver. Do you think culturally we need to be safer cavers, or is it just a matter of getting unlucky?
I think it's a really good question, and I was actually kind of musing about this not too long ago, because You know, one of our local cave rescuers talks about all the experience he's had, and I was like, I hope I never have as much experience as you do. But I think we've kind of, in some ways, at least in my region, the rescues that we seem to have, we have less of these little silly ones that are preventable. I think we're getting better about preventing ones. So the ones that we seem to be having are the really like kind of unpreventable ones that are just, you know, the kind of shit happens ones that are like, well, like they weren't doing anything wrong, but something happened. Or, you know, I mean, short of staying above ground, you know, some of these aren't preventable. And I'm always a big fan of prevention, and that's one of the things I talk a lot about. You know, it's like I'm less interested in the rescue, I'm more interested in the prevention. But I think we've gotten better about that with cave management and just with the information that is out there in the world. There's less, like we always hear the stories about just like, well, it's Wednesday night, we had to get some drunk people out of the local yokel cave and they ran out of light. Like, I haven't heard about anybody running out of light in years. Our technology is a lot better than it used to be. We're just in some of those little ways we seem to have been better. But yeah, I think we can always be seeking safer options. And you know, if a safer thing slows us down incrementally, or it means I have to carry an extra, you know, few ounces in my pack, like whatever, I mean, you know, it's not a big deal. And I think, you know, that kind of mentality is, you know, when you're the only one on your trip that thinks that way, like then you have to carry everybody's sandwiches and stuff. It's not fun. So it's better if we all can do it. If that answers the question. I can't see. Yeah, webbing. Mm-hmm. Agreed. And food. Some of these people I cave with, they don't want to eat until they get out. Well, listen, you know, when we were flooded in the cave, I was like, my food.
So,
yeah.
Laura, I have a
Mhm.
question. What do you carry in your cave pack?
Oh yeah, I love cave pack dump. So for just a regular horizontal cave, Indiana cave trip, I always have webbing, a trash bag, and a candle. Like, saved my life probably. If I hadn't had and you want a good trash bag, you want like not a dinky one, you want one that goes down to your ankles that you could sleep in. And if you're small enough, you can get 2 people in there. And not a little dinky tea light candle. We all have these like little dinky tea light candles that kept going out. Like, get you a $2 candle. Like, you're worth it. Get a big candle, like a fat one. Get a couple little fat ones. Yeah. Contractor bag, a big one. Those are always in my pack, a couple of candles. I now carry aqua tabs, some sort of way to like filter water. I did not have that before. I always have like a wag bag for, you know, whatever unexpected thing. I usually have like a little pill bottle that's got like ibuprofen, Imodiums, Benadryl. We've had some like peanut issues and stuff before in caves. We've had just people have random like, my throat feels itchy. It's like, here's a Benadryl. Let's get out of the cave. That kind of stuff. A lot of people do use peanuts in an enclosed space. We have a lot more peanut allergies nowadays, so that's not a bad idea. Duct tape, zip ties for just pack repairs, a little bit of paracord, you know, food and water, plenty of snacks. And I always have like a dry top, a balaclava. Depends on how bougie I'm feeling, if I want like extra gloves, those kind of things. Yeah, webbing always. Mm-hmm. Or we at least make sure like at least 2 of us are carrying it, but I like to have it. Yeah, caffeine's another one. I also have like a nicotine patch because I cave with people that like if they were trapped underground for a long time, like they would need that. So I don't know. I might take up smoking if I'm trapped again. So who knows? Like, but that, just like paper towels, not like toilet paper that falls apart. I don't really do the Mylar blankets. Some people do. Those kind of fall apart. 2 trash bags. Trying to think what else. It depends on the trip too. Sometimes I have like a little nail puller, like Wonder Bar I've used for like, you know, mud bank steps and things like that, or digging out like small things. But yeah, it's always a fun like grotto trip to do like the pack. Yeah, the variety of medicine. I do carry baby aspirin now, and I do carry like Aleve and ibuprofen. Yes, for sure. And like I usually carry also like a liquid IV or some sort of like electrolyte drink just to give somebody the boost. So most of the thing, and it's funny, like spar rescues are a whole nother thing, and most people think they involve rope, but I've like sparred out like drunk people out of caves and just other things that are like weird, like that are not, you're like I had an incident where somebody, like I turned my eye and then they were like they had overpilled, and I don't know, it was a whole weird thing. But a lot of like those kind of rescues just involve like encouragement and oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, the little stretchy tape like around the horse's legs, that's a good one too. Yeah. But a lot of it just encourages, like it's just like snacks and motivation and electrolytes and like patience and just, you know, I've done a lot of those. But here's a trash bag. Okay, let's go. All right. Oh, you're fine. It's everything's fine. Let's go. You can cry and crawl at the same time. It's okay. We're going. Like, you know, this kind of stuff. So that's probably like a lot of the minor incidents, and that's part of prevention, right? That's part of those things becoming worse things. So knowing when it's time to, you know, when there's been too many red flags and it's time to go.
You do any
Or do some-
tourniquets
that
or,
is
stretchers?
Not well, that's like a level 1. That's like a class question. So most of the injuries that we see in caves, right, they're usually like what I was talking about, or like just out of gas, or like extremities, you know, like ankles, legs, you know, or wrists, fall down and go boom, head injuries, things like that. The likelihood of needing a turn, I mean, you'd have to, I wouldn't feel like it's a high enough probability to carry one with me on every trip, if that makes sense. But if it happened, I would make one. But I think that would be a really that would be a low probability for what we see for most of the cave things. The stretcher, yeah, I mean, we have flexible litters that can be brought in, but that's like a call out, you know, at that point, that's when you're gonna like wait with the person and keep them comfortable and call out for one of those and have that brought in. Yeah. And we have you can come for a whole week and you can handle a cave stretcher so much. And it's interesting, like especially in the small places. Yeah. And a lot of, you know, I'm not too focused on antibiotics or like ointments or anything like that. Like, you know, irrigate it out, get as much of the bits out as you can, put pressure on it, bandage it up and get out. Yeah, let them debride it and stuff in the hospital. Yeah, don't sew it shut, don't glue it shut. Just I do actually have a maxi pad, a pretty big one that I carry in my pack for a pressure wound. Yeah, so that's another thing. Yeah, but
Cool.
Yeah, that's good questions. Yeah, lighter for sure. Oh, you all have like really good suggestions. 20 feet of webbing is good, and if you and a couple friends carry it, you know, you can do all kinds of things. You can make emergency harnesses. You can belay people with it. You can, you know, you can carry them with. You can make a little stretcher out of webbing. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can, you know, curl up on it and take a nap. Whatever you want. It's good. I was like, some of y'all need to just like sign up for a training. I'm like, yeah. I'm gonna see you. Some of you this summer, maybe in New York or at some other point. We're having an orientation to cave rescue. I'm hoping registration details come out here in March-ish, early April. But the training is May 18th and 19th. It's whatever's not Mother's Day weekend. Yeah, 18th and 19th. That's just a weekend one. Highly recommend you come to that. That'll be great. We do like a class day, and then we do a mock rescue. So we lose people in the cave, and you have to go find us and figure out what's wrong with us and get us out. It's fun. We get to play hide and seek from you. Any other questions or anything? Yeah, feel free to email. I'll turn this into a PDF, and no link to that event yet. Coming soon, but if you follow Central Region on Facebook, that I am finding somebody can throw the link up there. There's like 2 of them, but that should be coming out soon. Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll turn this into a PDF, and I think it was Civil wanted that, if I'm saying your name correctly. If you can email me, or I'll get that to you. Yeah, I think it's perfect. Thank you, Stephanie.
So I just wanted to make a few comments as well. So I myself had been through a cave accident and subsequent rescue, and Laura was one of the first people I called. And I totally utilized her at that time, like trying to process what it was that had happened. And she was one of the few people that I could talk to, and I just could relate to and could really, talk through my feelings and what was going on in my head at the time. So I do appreciate Laura's experience with it, and just all the coaching she's given me over the past couple of years, really. So I do want to say, if you ever do end up in a scenario like that, totally reach out. There's people who you can talk to and stuff. Do get rescue training. We're plugging that OCR, and there's that Central Region NCRC page. Greater Cincinnati Grotto is also hosting a wilderness first aid class down at the Great Saltpeter Cave Preserve in Kentucky. And that'll be July 20th and 21st. The link for that is on GCG's page. I'll copy that and post that in this chat as well.
And that's being taught by cavers, so that's
yes.
you can ask them all the cave questions you want. They're good.
Right. They're very, very good. I took my WFA class actually twice under them. And so we're happy to bring that to cavers as well. And we're doing it at cost. So basically there's no profit being made off of this one. It's really the cost of the certification and hosting location and stuff. So totally sign up for that one. You've got a little bit of time because that's out in July. Great questions that people asked about what do you carry in your cave pack. That's actually next month's tech topic with GCG. Yay. And I think we kind of teed it up that way on purpose. So we'll be doing that one with somebody who's a trip leader for a lot of sort of recreational cave trips and stuff, kind of showing what's in his cave pack and fostering a discussion about pack dump. So cool. Hope to see you all again next month. And I didn't really have anything else, but thanks everybody for joining, and feel free to reach out with other questions.
Awesome. Yeah, my email's here, so anytime, or if you think of something later, feel free. I'm happy to help.